Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Meg Terrell with CNBC again. I'm delighted now to get to introduce Dr. Albert Bourla, the chairman and CEO of Pfizer. Albert has been with Pfizer for 25 years. He joined in 1993. He has a degree in veterinary medicine, and he joined Animal Health Division as technical director of Greece. Of course, having been with the company for that long now, the latest achievement, nobody needs me to tell them about. The company developed one of the foremost COVID vaccines, now getting us out of this pandemic. Albert, with that introduction, I'm just going to turn it over to you. And we look forward to everybody's questions afterwards. Please post them in the Q&A tab and we'll get them to Albert. Albert, over to you.
Thank you very much, Meg, and hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to speak to an audience of investors who are eager to hear about Pfizer's long-term value creation strategy. Historically, Pfizer's model was inherently long-term, with our R&D cycles lasting nearly 10 years on average. Today, our ambition is to accelerate the delivery of high-quality innovations through transformational science, cutting-edge digital solutions, and of course, the hard work and ingenuity of our purpose-driven colleagues. We believe this will enable us to address sustainably over the long term the evolving global disease burdens and create more immediate value for patients. In January of this year, we formally launched the new Pfizer, following a bold transformation from a large, diversified enterprise to a more agile, smaller organization focused on breakthroughs. And the events of this past year have confirmed how correct was our decision to embed environmental, social, and governance criteria into our corporate strategy early on, and how critical it is for our ability to deliver on our purpose, which is breakthroughs that change patients' lives. As I intend to demonstrate today to you, we believe our impact over the last year is a perfect indicator of our potential future performance. By harnessing the power of a variety of digital capabilities, as well as our own steadfast commitment to patients, we made sure that despite lockdowns and travel restrictions, we reached more than 400 million patients worldwide with our medicines and vaccines. And we did this while also delivering, in less than a year, a breakthrough COVID-19 vaccine. May I have the next slide, please? Before I begin my presentation, I need to share this slide, which contains the required safe harbor language, since the discussion will contain forward-looking statements that are subject to substantial risks and uncertainties. Let's start. Next slide, please. One of my first priorities when I became CEO 2 years ago was to clearly articulate Pfizer's purpose. We did this as a leadership team because the data show that companies that have a clearly defined purpose and stay true to that purpose outperform those that do not. We also recognize the fundamental shift of the role of a company in society. Last year, I signed onto the Business Roundtable purpose of a corporation, committing to not only deliver value to our shareholders, but to also our patients, our customers, our employees, to other stakeholders, to deal fairly with suppliers and support the communities in which we operate. Our purpose blueprint guides our decision-making and serves as a roadmap for our board, our management, and approximately the board of management and approximately the 78,000 colleagues around the world of Pfizer. Our values, bold moves, and ESG strategy serve to reinforce one another and form an integrated framework that enables us to deliver on our purpose, which sits at the core of everything we do. To deliver breakthroughs that change patients' lives, we are focused on 5 bold moves or strategic priorities: unleashing the power of our people, delivering best-in-class science, transforming our go-to-market model, winning the digital race in pharma, and leading the conversation. But perhaps the most important element of the blueprint are our 4 values: courage, excellence, equity, and joy, because they define our culture. Our colleagues apply each of these values in all decisions affecting our science, our business, and our society. Living our values and executing our bold moves are critical to our ability to deliver on our ambition of putting 25 breakthroughs in patients' hands by 2025. That's 25 potential new innovative medicines and vaccines that will not only have the potential to improve people's health, but dramatically change their lives for the better. I have seen our purpose blueprint come to life over the past 2 years, guiding our work not only in COVID-19, but across the entire portfolio. While we invested significant time, resources, and brain power to find medical solutions to the pandemic, tens of thousands of Pfizer colleagues continued to advance equally important work across all of our other therapeutic areas, recognizing that the need of those suffering from other diseases were no less urgent. Let's go to the next slide, please. So long before the Business Roundtable issued its purpose of a corporation, Pfizer was focused on delivering value to patients as the only way to create shareholder value in our industry. ESG is not just a siloed vertical within Pfizer. It is part of who we are and a discipline that we are embedding into the long-range strategic plan we are executing. Implementing ESG on an enterprise-wide basis allows management and all colleagues to mitigate risks and seize opportunities for a broader group of stakeholders by informing capital investments, shaping our go-to-market models, attracting and developing human capital, mitigating enterprise-wide risks, and even more important, strengthening reputation and credibility, which is so important for a pharmaceutical company. We have reached a few key milestones in the past year to jumpstart our ESG board focus, including we formalized the role of our board in overseeing these activities, and we renamed, as a reminder of that, our governance committee into Governance and Sustainability Committee. We designated a Chief Sustainability Officer. We issued the biopharma industry's first sustainability bond, addressing capital investments in both environmental and social initiatives, and aligned with the relevant UN Sustainable Development Goals. Launching our first ESG report aligned with leading standards and reporting frameworks, and completing an extensive priority issue assessment to confirm where and how we can have the greatest long-term impact. Next slide, please. In 2020, our newly established ESG function conducted a robust priority assessment that is critical in focusing our efforts and investment on the most relevant factors driving our short, medium, and long-term performance. We saw impact and input from colleagues, and combined with that with structured input from key stakeholders, including some of our leading institutional investors. And we provided an update to the Board Governance and Sustainability Committee on the outcomes. While the 5 priorities identified are not new focus areas, but rather a reaffirmation of areas that Pfizer is focused on in the past, the priority assessment helped crystallize where there is a clear relationship between our own imperatives and the expectations of external stakeholders. These areas are the product innovation, product quality and safety, equitable access and pricing, colleague diversity, equity, and inclusion, and climate change. A total of 30 issues were identified as potentially in scope for our assessment. We consider all of them important, whether we monitor, manage, or prioritize. This exercise informs our corporate strategy and allows us to make decisions and set priorities for investments that will help maximize the value we are creating for our shareholders and society over the long term. This diagram represents a snapshot in time. This is fall of 2020, which we plan to continually update. The landscape in which we operate is constantly evolving. And as we are experiencing with COVID-19, non-linear events such as pandemics and increasingly unpredictable weather patterns are testing the resilience of companies. The priority assessment helps us anticipate future shifts in the landscape as they evolve over time or with rapid onset. It will be important to refresh our understanding of the external environment and listen closely to our stakeholders on a regular basis. As a more agile, purpose-led organization, we believe we are better equipped to identify fast-moving developments and pivot our approach as needed. Next slide, please. In March of 2020, as COVID-19 swept across the world, I challenged everyone at Pfizer to make the impossible possible, to develop a vaccine more quickly than anyone ever had before, ideally within 6 months, and certainly before the end of the year. The CEO of our collaboration partner, BioNTech, did exactly the same with his team. Our ability to move at such extraordinary speed in delivering a breakthrough COVID-19 vaccine, while always maintaining our focus on quality and safety, was a powerful display of what the new Pfizer is capable of. And we couldn't have done it without our pivot to innovation over the past years. And just as important, without all of our colleagues living the values that enable innovation and have us set up for long-term growth potential. And let me briefly touch on it. First, courage. We couldn't have succeeded without thinking big and challenging our teams to do in 8 months what normally would take up to 10 years. We couldn't have succeeded without having the courage to invest $2 billion at risk before we knew whether our COVID-19 vaccine program would be successful. And we couldn't have succeeded without being decisive. This includes making 2 very counterintuitive decisions that were proven vital to delivering the vaccine in record time. The first was choosing the technology of mRNA. Unlike other companies, we did have options because we had ample knowledge for protein, vector technologies, and multiple other technologies. And those they had produced previous vaccines, while mRNA had not yet produced an approved vaccine because we believed it gave us the best chance to battle the virus. That's why we made the decision. Another one was choosing not to accept federal funding on Pfizer's development program. We tried to liberate our scientists from the internal bureaucracy when we scheduled this program. And by not accepting funds from federal reserves, we could liberate our scientists from the external bureaucracy that comes when you accept money from governments. These bold actions and decisions led to the first authorized COVID-19 vaccine in the US. As of June 3rd, we have shipped more than 640 million doses around the world with a 99.9% accuracy rate. Our second value is excellence. We can only change patients' lives when we perform at our best and when we do that together as a company. Even with short time frames, our R&D team was able to focus its efforts and deliver rapid innovation while our manufacturing team focused on upholding our standards of safety and quality, but delivering miracles. We leveraged digital solutions to help us measure outcomes quickly, so we could continue to advance our development program at the speed of science. Our third value is equity. Fair and equitable distribution of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine has been our North Star from day one, because exactly part of our culture is equity. To help ensure that every country had the opportunity to acquire our COVID-19 vaccine, two conditions had to be met. The first was to have an affordable price based on equitable principles that will allow everyone to be able to have it. The second was to have reliable manufacturing of enough vaccines for all. The first condition was met early on, when we decided to offer our vaccine at a pandemic price through tiered pricing based on a country's ability to pay. Wealthier nations would pay about the cost of a takeaway meal for each dose. But middle-income countries will pay even less, will pay roughly half of that price. And the low-income countries, they're receiving the doses at cost. Meeting the second condition, which is let's make enough for all, has been more challenging, but we are getting there with remarkable speed. In fact, Pfizer and BioNTech recently pledged to provide 2 billion doses of our COVID-19 vaccine to middle and low-income countries over the next 18 months. This includes 1 billion this year in the next 6 months, and another 1 billion in 2022. We also know the pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on communities of color, particularly here in the US. So to help make sure all communities would have confidence in the vaccine, we made a concerted effort to ensure our clinical trials were conducted in diverse communities to give a diverse population the opportunity to participate. And we were successful. And after receiving emergency use authorization, we began reaching out to communities of color who, because of unfortunate past experiences, may be more distrustful of vaccines. And we did that to educate them about the scientific rigor and commitment to safety that defined our development process. All of that was because we truly believe in the value of equity. And of course, the fourth value of joy also played a significant role. You know, our achievements today required a moonshot challenge, and our colleagues responded. And why? Because Pfizer colleagues became extremely proud by the impact we are making on society. They took tremendous joy to feel this pride. And this has created an above and beyond everything dedication and hard work, but eventually gave us success. While we never imagined a pandemic of this magnitude, when we set up those values, every action we have taken over the past several years has been to transform Pfizer into a more agile scientific powerhouse capable of addressing the most devastating diseases of the world. Next slide, please. So the new Pfizer is smaller, but more focused than ever on delivering first-in-class science for the benefit of patients. The new Pfizer is all about two things: science and patients. By uniting transformational technology and cutting-edge science, we are pioneering biopharmaceutical innovations to do more than just treat difficult diseases. We want to cure and prevent them. We have streamlined our processes and culture to become more nimble, decisive, and thoughtful in our risk-taking. We behave more like a biotech, but with the resources of a bigger corporation. These changes position us well to respond quickly not only to a global pandemic, but the health needs of patients and community across other therapeutic areas in our portfolio. The success of our COVID-19 vaccine has led to an important question. If we could do this for COVID-19, why not for other diseases? There are so many people suffering from other serious diseases, and their needs are no less urgent. Our ESG priority of product innovation and product safety and quality is aligned with our bold move to deliver first-in-class science. From 2017 to 2020, Pfizer reduced the first-in-human to approval cycle for new molecular entities by 11%, from 9.4 years to 8.4 years, based on a 5-year rolling average. We also more than tripled phase 2 success rates from 2016 to 2020, leading to an overall success rate metric of 21% based on 5-year rolling cohorts, which is almost triple the 2019 industry's benchmark, which is 8% instead of 21. We have set a public goal of 25 breakthroughs by 2025. And I feel very, very good about us being able to achieve and hopefully exceed. Looking ahead, we remain focused on being nimble and investing in our R&D organization so we can build on the strong improvement in key metrics we have seen over the past 5 years. At the same time, we will continue to pursue business development opportunities with the potential to enhance our long-term growth prospects. That includes responsible use of our intellectual property, which enable us to engage in collaborations and partnerships that have the potential to speed up progress on the most pressing unmet medical needs. Next slide, please. Beyond the vaccine, our focus on patients is aligned with our ESG priority of facilitating equitable access globally across our portfolio. We are innovating our go-to-market model to address the critical aspects of global demographics and socioeconomics, longevity, ethnicity, race, and gender, cost controls in healthcare systems, etc. In 2020, our medicines and vaccines reached 420 million patients around the world through our traditional commercial channels and some access programs. Some patients are unable to access traditional healthcare systems. We pursue a variety of complementary access and affordability programs to address these gaps. In 2020, we were able to reach 58 million patients through patient assistance programs, distribution of our Prevnar vaccine to Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, donations of our Zithromax antibiotic, and more. 2020 is for us a baseline year to publicly report on our progress with such detail, but we are proud of the accomplishments today in evolving our go-to-market model, but we plan also to improve. While we are focused on measuring our own impact and setting our own targets in the future, we have kept an eye on external indices to help ensure we are considering what stakeholders find valuable to them. And we are very pleased to see that our patient-first efforts in access and affordability have resulted in our jump from the 11th to the 4th place in the 2021 Access to Medicine Index ranking, and from 4th to 2nd on the Patient View global survey among our large pharma peers. We continue to have high internal standards against which we are measuring our progress. But these external rankings help reinforce that our access and affordability strategies are reaching those who might otherwise be left behind. May I have the next slide, please? We have also been working to ensure our clinical trials reflect the diversity of patients for whom our breakthroughs are intended. This year, Pfizer published an industry-first retrospective analysis of demographic data of participants in 213 of our US trials initiated between 2011 and 2020. The analysis demonstrated that overall trial participation of Black or African American individuals was at the US census level, actually a little bit higher, 14.3 versus 13.4. Participation of Hispanic or Latino individual was a little bit below US census, 15.9 versus 18.5. And female participation was at US census, 51.1 versus 50.8. We also examined the percentage of trials that achieved racial ethnic distribution levels at or above US census levels. Participant levels above census were achieved in 56.1% of Pfizer trials for Black or African American participants, 51.4% of trials for white participants, 52.3% of trials for Hispanic or Latino participants, but 16% of trials for Asian, 14.2% of trials for Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders, and 8.5% of trials for American Indian and Alaska Native participants. So clearly, we have more work to do with some of these minorities. But we publish this analysis to be transparent and for it to serve as a baseline as we measure progress in this area. We believe that diversity in trials is a matter of equity and good science, and are taking decisive steps to improve diversity in our trials, such as expanding the pool of our investigators, building awareness of underrepresented communities, and removing access barriers. As I said, there is much work to be done, but Pfizer is committed to doing our part so that enrollment in our trials can reflect the racial and ethnic diversity of the countries in which we operate and the epidemiology of the diseases we intend to treat or prevent. Next slide, please. Pfizer recognizes the profound societal and public health impact that are expected to result from environmental issues, and consequently is one of the early adopters of reporting on environmental sustainability efforts and goals. Our company purpose, breakthroughs that change patients' lives, guides our environmental priorities as well, with a focus on climate impact, mitigation, conservation of resources, and the reduction of waste arising from our operations. We exceeded our third generation greenhouse gas goal by reducing emissions by 33% by the end of 2020 compared to our 2012 baseline. We are now advancing our science-based target initiative, approved greenhouse gas reduction goals, aligned with a 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway. For example, we aim to be carbon neutral across our internal operations all over the world, delivering a 46% absolute reduction in direct emissions from a 2019 baseline, including purchasing 100% renewable energy. We are reducing carbon emissions while also trying to address climate change more broadly in the areas that most naturally intersect with our business. We have evaluated our current product portfolio against diseases that are exacerbated by climate change, for example, to identify medicines and vaccines potentially responsive to this global health challenge, such as treatments for various vector and waterborne diseases. Next slide, please. The bedrock and enabler of our shift to this innovation-focused company is our people. Through an immensely challenging year, our colleagues continue to feel a sense of purpose and level of engagement in the work they do each day. In a recent survey, 96% of our colleagues saw that they feel proud for the work that the company is doing. 93% of our colleagues said that they see alignment in their day job with the company purpose. In terms of DEI, we are making good progress, but we are still have work to do. We have revised our DEI targets to reflect our commitment to developing a diverse workforce and serving a diverse universe of patients. As I mentioned, we have placed a greater focus on diversity within our clinical trials to help ensure that they are representative of the populations we serve. But human capital is critical also to our ability to succeed and compete long term. And so we continue to aim to attract the best and brightest and ensure they have opportunities to grow. We realize that delivering on our purpose means not just attracting the right talent, but also ensuring our colleagues can thrive in an environment and culture where we champion diversity and inclusion. We are looking at different ways to implement leading practices and measure our progress. This includes taking steps to further lower our involuntary turnover and generate even higher alignment with core purposes. What matters to colleagues now and in the future is that their day-to-day efforts are contributing to a better world and a culture that allows them to bring their best selves to work each day. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, society has significant unmet medical needs, and our best science and capital should be directed to addressing those areas. This is what we do best. We remain focused on the intersection of the needs of diverse patient population and where our science can accelerate the pace of innovation to bring breakthrough medicines and vaccines. This is why we have focused on therapeutic areas such as cancer, rare disease, inflammation, obesity, metabolic conditions, and platforms such as vaccines, sterile injectables, and others. We remain focused on being nimble and investing in our R&D organization so we can build on the strong improvement in key metrics we have seen over the past year. We are leveraging the best people, science, technology to deliver our purpose. Excuse me. We know the best ideas come from diverse people, views and backgrounds, and want to be an organization that can stimulate and advance those ideas. Society needs companies like Pfizer, but they have the breadth and depth, and they have the resources, the capital to responsibly invest in potential breakthroughs, knowing that there will be failures along the way, but not be deterred by this challenge. We remain very confident in our ability to achieve our projected growth rates because of the strength of both our current product portfolio and our R&D pipeline. Ultimately, when patients win in terms of advances in medical treatment options, we all win. Through it all, our purpose blueprint will remain our roadmap for success. Our commitment to patients will be our North Star, and the power of science will be the engine that drives us forward. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you, Albert. That was wonderful. And I'd like to tell folks if they've got questions, submit them in the Q&A tab. We also will have poll questions that will come up at the end, and our organizers are encouraging everybody to answer those poll questions. Albert, let's start, of course, with the impact of the pandemic on Pfizer and what it proved the organization can do in terms of the speed of R&D and harnessing new technologies quickly to make a huge difference in the world. How has the pandemic changed your perspective on innovation and equitable access during this and the next pandemic, as horrible as it is to think about that potential?
I wouldn't say it changed, but I would say definitely reinforced the belief that this is the right path for us and for society. I think the pandemic, one of the most important lessons, because there were a lot that we learned, was the power of science, the power of innovation. Without that, we wouldn't be here today. We would be in dark days, as they were the beginnings of this pandemic. And I think also from our perspective, I would say that if we wouldn't take all the right approaches at the beginning, one, to have a pricing that will provide through tiered approach access to this vaccine to all, and through investing extremely risky in building a manufacturing network that eventually will produce in a few months enough capacity for all, we wouldn't be able to call ourselves a company that focuses on equity. So I think for me was two things: a great demonstration of what we can do, but also a great reconfirmation of that this is the right path for Pfizer.
What does the investment that Pfizer has made in manufacturing this vaccine on such massive scale, on top of all of the other vaccines and drugs that you make every year, what does that look like in the years ahead in terms of both the world needing COVID vaccines, but also will that capacity be used for other things? You mentioned a lot of diseases you expect to address because of climate change. Does that involve more vaccines or other things you would use this capacity for?
Clearly, we invested billions, right? And a very, very big part of that went to manufacturing. And we did a lot of that at risk because we started all these investments without knowing if we will have a vaccine or not. Right now, we have built a tremendous capacity. We expect to make 3 billion doses this year. And on a running rate, we expect to make 4 billion doses next year. Clearly, for the part that the pandemic is requiring those massive volumes, we will be there to assist the people. I do expect that after a few years, the capacity will be able to serve other mRNA needs, because right now we are investing, as we speak, a lot in taking this mRNA platform that has been proven to be quite effective, and we try to build other infectious diseases, to develop other infectious disease vaccines, but also look at application in other diseases like cancer. So I believe that the world, Pfizer, and through us the world, will benefit from this very big capacity that we have built right now.
You know, the future applications of mRNA are something that's come up really all day at this conference. And Paul Hudson from Sanofi was with us earlier. And of course, Sanofi being a huge player in the flu market, the flu vaccine market, he said he thought that mRNA is not going to have an easy ride in flu because you have to have, in flu anyway, a shot that's like a placebo in terms of its reactogenicity. He doesn't think that people will tolerate the same side effects as they will for the COVID vaccine. How do you look at the potential for mRNA to work in flu? And do you expect that over time, you'll be able to find a way to make it less reactogenic so people don't feel so crummy, some folks, after getting their second dose in particular?
Yeah. I do not share these views. I think we have a very big problem with flu vaccines, and everybody knows. The flu vaccines can be from 20 to 60% effective, depending of how accurate we were with matching the strain that will circulate. It is very common to be less than 50% effective. This is a high unmet medical need. And I think the mRNA has the potential to bring very different level of efficacy and the same level of safety as current vaccines, and we are moving full speed to developing them. Of course, data will be the final judge here, and we will see how that goes. But if I would be a manufacturer of normal, let's say, old technology flu vaccines, I would think that I need to think in new technologies.
Well, that was Paul's reaction as well. He said, if mRNA is the way to go in flu, they are there, as they are developing an mRNA vaccine in COVID as well. Another question here for you is about your board of directors and the composition of it. How did that help Pfizer navigate the current pandemic?
I think the board is the one that gave us the green pass to do all these things. And in our case, actually, they gave us the encouragement to work on that. The Pfizer board has changed a lot in the last few years. We have, since 2016, I think we appointed 5 new members, right? And then many others left. So we have right now not only a very good diversity. We have 3 board directors that they are identify themselves as ethnic minorities. We have 4 women. Of course, there's a lot of improvement, but more importantly, we have 5 scientists. And I don't think you will find a board of pharma company that has 5 scientists, particularly of that caliber. And I think that, and it's not only, right? We have global leaders that understand the global realities in the world. So with a board like that, with the sensitivities about our reputation, with the passion about science, I had the best supporter in my efforts to take risks. Imagine if I had a board that would be looking to see if I spend too much money on things that they have too small probability of success. I would have a constant problem on my back. On the contrary, I have the encouragement, go ahead and we are behind you. So it was very important for me to be able to, it was very important to me to be able to do the vaccine, to have a board like that.
We've got a question from the audience who asks if you could go on a bit on the concept of leading the conversation. They ask, is this also true at the sector level, not only at the level of an individual company, but should the biopharmaceutical industry be generally more proactive about leading the conversation? What do you think?
I think absolutely yes. And I think that at large, in the past, either we were demonstrating, everybody, including Pfizer, a disconnect with what people are thinking about this industry, or when things became really tough, a passive, reactive type of approach to that. I think, and I truly believe it, that there is no other industry that can claim that is producing so much good for humanity than this industry. And by the way, we had a profound demonstration of that during the COVID pandemic. We should be responsibly leading the conversation, not hiding the areas that we have to do better, actually bringing them up front and recognizing them, that these are areas that we should do way better, and at the same time, demonstrate to all the areas that we do very well and we bring value to society.
Yeah, I wonder about that because there's such tension for the pharmaceutical industry. You can see it, and we talked about this a little bit earlier with Ken Frazier as well, in the conversation around the COVID vaccines, whether it comes to the patent waiver idea, whether it comes to the amount of profits that the companies are making from the vaccines. There are so many people who think that the pharmaceutical industry is still an evil industry, despite the good that it brought to the world with the vaccines. How do you overcome that kind of attitude from society around your industry?
Meg, I have to be honest. What I experienced is from the societies, right? Not what you described. This is clearly what a lot of people that they disagree or they feel uncomfortable that the society likes right now companies that have contributed to it, like Pfizer, like Moderna, like Gilead that brought the remdesivir, like Lilly, like everyone who brought treatments or diagnostics or vaccines, they are clearly highly respected, and clearly people feel grateful about them. I think that makes some political voices feeling uncomfortable because that doesn't fit the narrative of the evil pharmaceutical anymore. So what I think we should be doing, first of all, not to become arrogant, not to think for a moment that the trust and gratefulness that society is giving us right now, it is given. We need to have the attitude that we need to continue earning it every day because things can turn around. And if we do that, I'm sure that those people that they are trying to making issues that are completely in the periphery of what is happening, just because the narrative is not what they used to support, they will likely find other enemies.
In terms of access to medicines, what lessons have you been able to glean from the pandemic for delivering products affordably in low and middle income countries? And, is that happening at the fastest pace it possibly could here in this pandemic when there is such an argument over patent waivers and how to fix the inequities we have in vaccine access globally?
I think in the vaccine, we have likely the best example of innovation reaching everyone in the world. I know that right now it is more weighted towards the healthy world, the high income countries who is getting the vaccine, but we are giving 116 countries right now vaccine, and we give it at affordable cost, this vaccine, which is, we don't have enough to sell, right? But we give it to affordable cost. And by the end of the year, we will have dramatically shift that. So we made very clear that we will do at least 1 billion doses this year to middle and low income countries, right? And December will come and we will make our report and we will see if we achieved or exceeded or missed that goal. But when it comes to the vaccines, please, we are making enough and everybody will have it, maybe 6 months late. But I do recognize that right now there are places in the world, like Africa, low-income countries, that do not have access to innovative medicines. Right now, medicines like Eliquis, like Ibrance, like medicines for cancer, for very important high-tech medicines, they find their way only to the high, let's say, to the middle or high, particularly income countries. That needs to change. So what I want to say is that there is a lot of inequity in the way that poor countries are accessing innovative medicines. And I'm determined to fix that in the near term. But this is not the case with vaccines, please.
I think we just have time for perhaps one last question coming from the audience, which asks, how important is pre-competitive collaboration within pharma or the vaccine sector to tackling COVID and climate inequality, health crisis in general? So all of the world's ills.
I think collaboration played a key role in whatever was able to be achieved. We partnered with BioNTech. AstraZeneca partnered with Oxford. We received the help of Sanofi and Novartis in Thermo Fisher in manufacturing our vaccine. We provided help to Gilead. So among the private sector, there was tremendous collaboration. There was also tremendous collaboration between private and public sector. For example, I know that every time that our scientists have a sleepless night to submit a dossier, this was the next night that the FDA scientists would have a sleepless night to review it. Without the dedication from them as well, which was equally hard than the dedication of our scientists, we wouldn't have it at the time that we had it. So it was a perfect example of private-public also collaboration. I think it's very important, but also don't forget, competition also played a nice role. The fact that people wanted to be the first, I think, was something that benefits society.
I would love to plumb that further. We are out of time. Albert Bourla, thank you so much. This was very interesting.
Thank you.
All right, and I want to let you all know you'll see a short video now, and we'll take a 10-minute break before we'll hear from Hervé Opnaud of Insight at 1:30. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Albert.